In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the Greater Patagonian Trail and why I'm choosing to hike some sections of it this January. So I've decided to take a career break. I was an IT manager, worked in the IT space now for 20 years. And for the past couple of years, I started to wonder if there's something different that I should be doing, something that's more fulfilling to me. I don't really know what it's going to be, but what I do know is that I enjoy hiking. It gives me headspace, it gives me clarity, it helps me make decisions. There's something about standing on top of a hill when it's blowing an absolute hoolie, and it just feels to me like it's blowing all my problems away. So I'm going to do some hiking in my career break. Need to figure out what kind of hiking I'm going to be doing. Is it going to be walking in a desert? Is it going to be walking along a coast, on roads, paths, hills, alpine? What am I actually going to be doing with my time off? So I started looking at different options available. One that sprung to mind was the Pennine Way in the UK, but in January it's going to be pretty miserable weather. I've done my fair share of walking in the rain, the cold and the snow and the ice, and I figured I could probably do something with a bit better weather, really. So I looked at, the first place to look at was a trail called the Lichen Way in Turkey. Now, the Lichen Way takes about a month. It's a coastal walk, starting or finishing in Antalya. But in January, again, it's not amazing weather. It's, somewhere in the mid-teens. There are a few days of rain. So I think at that point, I kind of decided that I wanted to walk somewhere in nice weather. So in January, Northern Hemisphere winter, Southern Hemisphere summer. So where in the Southern Hemisphere would I go? The first place that sprung to mind for me was New Zealand. Now in New Zealand, there's a trail called the Te Aroa. That goes from the northern or southern point, depending on which side you start, traverses both islands. I'd already done a small section of that back in 2017. It was amazing, but for me, I wanted to do something new. So onto the next continent was South Africa on the map, moving westward. Now I found a trail in South Africa called the Drakensberg Traverse. Looks amazing, sounds amazing. But for me, I had a little bit of hesitation about South Africa just due to safety concerns, right? There are safe areas to go in South Africa and there are unsafe places to go in South Africa. I have a friend who lives there and he said, there's people that come traveling here all the time. Perfectly fine, absolutely no problem whatsoever, but you probably do need to understand the way things work. You need to understand your border crossings and things like that. And to me, I felt that I wanted to go somewhere where I wasn't constantly looking over my shoulder, worrying about what's going to happen next and so on. So as I continued moving west in the Southern Hemisphere, I came to South America. Now, what I didn't realise about South America is its sheer vastness. It covers so many different latitude lines. And it's not just warm. It goes from, you've got rainforests, you've got, jungles and things like that. You've got arid environments, you've got temperate, you've even got polar regions in South America. So I needed to narrow that down a little bit. And the first place that sprung out to me was Patagonia. Never been to anywhere in South America whatsoever. And the first thing that sprung to mind when I thought about Patagonia was a climbing documentary that I'd watched with Alex Honnold. And him and his mate climbed the Fitzroy Traverse. So when you Google Patagonia, you're probably going to see those big spiky peaks. That's probably the Fitzroys. And they traversed the whole ridge of that, which was awesome to watch. But as I read a little bit further, I'm Googling things like long distance trails in Patagonia. The first thing that came was the Greater Patagonian Trail, or the GPT. So the GPT it's not a hiking trail like the other ones that I'd looked at, or even places like the Appalachian Trail in North America, or the Pacific Crest Trail, or the Great Divide. These aren't marked paths. There, in the UK we have the National Trust, we have public footpaths and things like that. I'm quite comfortable picking up an OS map in the UK with a compass and working my way around various footpaths, roads or whatever, to do a hiking circuit. This wasn't that. There is no consistent, reliable paper-based maps in Patagonia, or certainly around this section that I was looking at. So you have to rely on GPS. So there's lots of information about the GPT. The first place to start, if you're like me and looking to do something around the GPT, the first place is the Wikiexplora page. Now I'll post a link to that in the description. That's your central hub. There's also a Facebook page, and there's also a hiker's manual. So you can find the link to the hiker's manual on the Wikiexplora page, but the hiker's manual talks through a lot of the detail that you're going to need. This trail spans, the main route is about 3,000 kilometers, but the sum of all the GPS tracks available, including all the different hiking options and pack crafting options, equals nearly 20,000 kilometers. Now, that's not something you're just going to go and walk. You're going to have to pick a specific section or sections that you want to traverse. The trails, like I say, they're not specific hiking paths. They are a combination of horse trails, bushwhacking routes, trailless cross-country, and even the occasional ferry ride. Fortunately, there's a guy called Jan Dudeck, and he publishes the hiker's manual, but also the GPX files as well, with the help of the community that he's helped build. You can't just download the GPX files. You need to go through various steps, and that's to make sure that you have the right skills, make sure you've got the right expectations of the trail, what you're setting yourself up for, a commitment to update the trails as well once you've been on them, to keep that community going, and also to make sure that you respect the land and the culture on the Patagonian Trail. So back to the hiker's manual. So the first thing, when I opened that hiker's manual, I was shocked by how much information there was actually in there. There's over 1,300 pages. Now this thing is updated on a frequent basis. I think it's, the last one was 12 months. And there is so much information in there. I personally started by reading it page by page. I spent about a week, a couple of hours a night working my way through it. And that really helped me build an understanding of what approach I was going to take to the GPT. So for me, I decided that I didn't want to go to the popular areas like the Fitzroy range, and I didn't want to spend loads of time traveling between sections. So I wanted to do a continuous section to try and immerse myself as much as possible in the route. So the missing link for me then was the GPX files. I wanted to get them into Google Earth to zoom in and have a look at the different elevation profiles, the start points, the end points, the waypoints, and all the rest of it. And I also wanted to get them into my devices, right? I've got all these different devices. I've got a mobile phone that I'm going to be using for navigation. I've got a GPS device that I'm using for navigation. It's also going to be sending my location to my emergency contacts. It'll give me the ability to send satellite text and things like that. I'm going to have a watch as well, and I wanted to make sure that all these devices worked. I wanted to test them, trial them, and make sure I was ready for the trip. I didn't want to book a flight without actually knowing what route I was going to do. So I started on the journey of obtaining these GPX files. Now, when you start reading the hiker's manual, what you'll come across are something called track file unlock codes. There's about 7 or 8 of them in total, and you need to take all of them, add them all together, and then that's your password then for unlocking the zip file once you get them. To get the zip file, you will need to reach out to Jan himself and arrange an interview. The particular interview I had with Jan lasted about half an hour. Lovely guy. We talked about my plans, my experience, my skills, my expectations, make sure I understood what I was letting myself in for. And then Jan also, because Jan's hiked a lot, if not all of it, I don't really know, he gave me some alternative suggestions. So my plan was to tackle quite a difficult one first and then make my way onto other ones in a southbound direction. Instead, he suggested doing it the opposite way around. So I start with the easier ones first, and then once my confidence had built up, I'd be able to tackle the more complicated ones, which was a great idea. So now I'm going to hike northbound. So we discussed plans, skills, and once he was happy that he felt that I had the necessary understanding and so on, he then sent me an email with the link to download the files. I downloaded them, extracted them with my password, And yeah, here we are now. So now I've booked my flights. I'm going to fly to Santiago soon. I've booked my insurance. You know, make sure if you are doing this, you have your own insurance policy that protects you. Do your own research to make sure you've got the right coverage and so on. Again, there's lots of detail about this in the hiker's manual. I'm excited, little apprehensive still. There's a lot of unknowns, but I suppose that's what adventure is. And yeah, I might post a couple more videos. Maybe the next one will be mid or after the first section that I'm doing. So I'll keep you guys updated.